We are the ones who make you jump, who make you jump up and dance. We're in the middle of the carnival. We are the ones keep up the bacchanal. We are the ones who make you jump, who make you jump up and dance. Working to make this fun and spring. Greatest summer festivity, and yet we treated calypsonians and pan like dirt. All you
Good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon, good afternoon. Welcome to We're the Ones on Point FM. It's a pleasure to have you with us this afternoon. And as you know, We Are the Ones is where we discuss all and any issues that impact on us as a people, as a community, as a nation, and sometimes we go regional and international. So today we will be joined, we're having a mixture of guests today. I wanted to start looking at the whole issue of financial management and financial planning and wealth creation individually, for us as a people, different income levels. And so I'm going to be joined in my second hour by Mr. Terrence Martin. He has been with us previously. It was too short. He won't be in studio though. He will be joining us from his home in the US, and we will be talking on the whole issue of investing and financial management. And this is a precursor to having a conversation about the Eastern Caribbean Securities Stock Exchange, one of those avenues which I think is underutilized by us as a people in terms of investment. And why is that important? For those of you who are saving anything, you would know that the savings now is 2%, 1.5%. You actually, if you add up the fees that you pay the bank and then you compare it to your interest, unless you have large sums in the bank, you oftentimes are paying more in fees than you gain in interest. And so we're going to be having a chat with him about that. Before that, though, we will be having in studio very shortly Mr. Doyle Carter, the Public Relations Officer for the Antigua and Barbuda Basketball Association. Yes, I know it is sports, but we're going to be looking at sports and the whole issue of development and how sports is being used as a transformational tool for community development, and how that particular association is going about their business, using business pathways and business-minded thinking to move that association forward. But before that, I just wanted to, of course, we have to remember our Team Antigua Island Girls. They are on the ocean still. They're looking to be here towards the end of January, and we will stay with them all the way, every day. Reminder that they're rowing for their charity is the Cottage of Hope. And for us, I don't think we need to know the details behind that charity, because it's designed to take care of young girls in particular who are living a disadvantaged life, and to ensure that they are able to grow and be looked after in a loving and caring environment, away from the glare of public scrutiny. And so the girls chose that charity because they recognized that there was a need for a serious injection of financial resources into to the family that undertakes that initiative. And so remember, when we support them, that we should also find a way, a $5, I'm not telling anybody to do a large sum. You give according to your pockets, but give, because there are 80,000 of us in Antigua, or 90,000, or 190,000. Good afternoon, Monique. And if we all gave $1, if all the Antiguans in the diaspora give $5, if those of us who can do more give a 10, a 20, 100, we would go such a long way towards helping the girls meet their objective and to making a significant impact in the lives of those who are resident at the Cottage of Hope. So in addition to that, I should have worn my T-shirt today, But there are some fancy hi-ho, long sleeve, quick dry T-shirts now available for sale. I can tell you about the shirt. I wore one this weekend for camp. Went hiking and wore one, and rain came, wet me. It dried in about 10 minutes or less. I got sweaty as soon as I stopped walking. It was cool again. So they're really nice shirts that we can purchase to support. It's $135 per shirt. They will also be having T-shirts coming on stream shortly. For those of you who are in Antigua, yes, unfortunately, in Antigua, the shirts are available at almost all of the Kennedy's outlets. They've now added Athletic Club up at the airport. If you're traveling out, as your last stop on the way out to the airport, yes, you can get one you can get your shirts at the Athletic Club. There's also the outlet Just across from the police station, there is a t-shirt outlet there. You can also get your shirts there. You can get your shirts at the gas station in English Harbor. You can get them at any Kennedy's outlet. So let's go out. Let's support our girls. There are also bumper stickers. Let's follow them on their page, like them away, love them away. Of course, while we're thinking of that, we have to also mention the Dutch for Atlantic. That's the men's team that's way ahead of everybody else. And they're expected to be in Antigua between Tuesday and Wednesday. I'm rooting for them to come in on Wednesday, because if it's Tuesday, I can't go, and I want to go. So, yes, Kemal, I will get you your shirt. So, while we also, it's a new year, and I think that I wanted to add a little oomph to the program, a little variety. And so, we are going to be sharing some motivational nuggets from time to time. And I found this very interesting one by Denzel Washington. And it's interesting because when I listened to it, it also reminded me of why the girls are rowing. It reminds me of my challenge. Those of you who know, I'm doing this push-up. My hand hurt me, my chest hurt me, my heart hurt me, my stomach hurt me. Everything hurts, yes. But I remained committed every time I wanted. Every time I feel like, okay, I'm going to skip. I remember the girls rowing on the ocean, and they, even if they want to skip, what are they going to pack up the boat and go where? And so, from that angle. So I think that's a good motivation for all of us to do what we need to do. And so on that note, I want to share this nugget with all of us. I hope it plays. Yeah, let's see now. I hope you can hear it.
But more importantly, without consistency, you'll never finish. It's not easy. If it was easy, there'd be no Kerry Washington. Without commitment, you'll never start. But more importantly, without consistency, you'll never finish. It's not easy. If it was easy, there'd be no Kerry Washington. If it was easy, there'd be no Taraji Henson, P. Henson. If it were easy, there'd be no Octavia Spencer. But not only that, if it were easy, there'd be no Viola Davis. If it were easy, there'd be no Michael T. Williamson, no Stephen McKinley Henderson, no Russell Hornsby. If it were easy, there'd be no Denzel Washington. So, keep working, keep striving, never give up, fall down 7 times, get up 8. Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. Ease is a greater threat to progress than hardship. So, keep moving, keep growing, keep learning. See you at work. Without commitment.
But there's a reason it's hard. It's hard so that you can transition and push through and become a success. If it were easy, to use his words, he used this international people, but if it was easy, we wouldn't have had VC Bird being having the transformation on Antigua and Barbuda that we've had. If it was easy, we wouldn't have had all those other national heroes who would have impacted on our community, because we know, you hear the stories, the good, the bad, the difference, the everything, but in spite of it all, they persevered to succeed and to make a difference and make an impact. If it were easy, there's so many of us who have challenges from day to day and undertake so many things. But despite those challenges, it does not deter us at all from doing what is necessary to be impactful in our small way. If it was easy, we would not have had the Cottage of Hope, that family, husband and wife, who for years have been looking out for our girls. If it were easy, you wouldn't have all those community groups who persist through thick and thin, whether the funds are there or not, who persist to ensure that they're able to make a difference in the lives of so many of us in the community. And to our current one that I spoke about just a few minutes ago. And if it were easy, our girls, the first all-female black team of women to row across the Atlantic, if it were easy, we wouldn't have them. But because they are determined and motivated to stay with the challenge, we have progress. So, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted to introduce that as a good motivator. I'm still awaiting my guest, who I'm hoping will be here shortly. He's here. Then I'll bring him in. I hope. Yes. Yes. So, yes, I'm being joined by my guest, Mr. Doyle Carter, and as he gets seated and gets comfortable, I don't understand. Tapita, smile. Yes. So, ladies and gentlemen, yes, we are being joined this afternoon by one kind of supposedly kind of friend that I have there. So, sometimes we're friends, sometimes we're not so friends. I don't know when we've not been friends, so you'll find that. But we've been joined by Mr. Doyle Carter, a man that wears many, many facets. And I'm sorry about that. Let me just get everything here sorted. Yes. Good afternoon, Doyle.
Good afternoon, Petra. Good afternoon to everybody listening out there.
Okay, I'm hoping you're coming through because I can barely hear him. I don't know. Hi. Hello.
Hello.
Oh,
Hello.
yes, we're working. Yes, perfect. All right. So, Doyle is a man that wears many hats. So, before I introduce him in the capacity in which he's here today, Doyle, when you come to We're the Ones, welcome to We're the Ones on Point FM.
Pleasure to be here.
We normally ask our guests to introduce themselves in the other life besides what you're here for. So, share with my audience a little about yourself, Doyle.
Well, folks, I'm Doyle Carter.
Oh, Jesus. Oh, Lord. You see. You can tell that me he good, right? Because you see how he did that weird introduction. Dial, what you do besides the thing that you come here for talk about? You have to think about it.
Different things. Basketball is a passion of mine, which is why I'm a part of the executive, the new executive that's just been installed. I'm a part of the organization Northside Stingers. All right.
Clearly, he has no life besides basketball. You get the feeling. Come, Doyle. Let's go talk to my people.
I'm into promotions.
Right.
I'm into marketing.
I'm giving him a chance to tell people about the fact that I went to that I totally enjoyed. He's not taking it. All right, fine, no problem.
Different.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me do Doyle. Doyle has been involved in many things over the years that I've known him. He has done restaurants. He has done marketing. He is now involved with, what the restaurant, the place up the name, no?
Destination Area 51.
Destination in front of it? Oh, Area 51, where it's really, really nice. You need to check that out. It's up
Halcyon Heights.
Halcyon Heights, yes, behind Paris Pizza. It's a really nice atmosphere. You should check that out, those of you who haven't. I'm not giving him no plug. And he does so many things, like he says. But today, I have invited Doyle to come and speak to us as a representative of the Antigua and Barbuda Amateur Basketball Association. I got it right?
No, Antigua and Barbuda Basketball Association.
Oh, is that amateur in there?
It's now ABBA, and not Ababa.
It used to be Ababa, though.
Ababa was a long time ago.
So why you all took out the amateur?
Well,
Curious.
I wasn't there when they took it out.
Because I start to pay people now.
I don't know anything about that. The association does not pay anybody to play basketball.
The clubs don't pay people now?
Well, I'm not in control of what the clubs do or don't do. I'm not sure what, but
I guess you get some. I'm not gonna ask you what outside stingers. Anyways, so ABBA, Take a Chance on Me, is celebrating 51 years now. Last year was 50 years.
Yes.
Right, and I note that you've always, the basketball executives in particular have always been interesting in their outlook and their approach to the whole business of managing the sport, because that is what I want to look at. Everybody know basketball. Somebody asked me, what are you doing with basketball today? This is not a sports show. But the reason why I've invited Doyle, ladies and gentlemen, is because I've been noticing that the Basketball Association in Antigua and Barbuda has been taking, to me, a more business-like approach to this business of basketball. That's one. And two, I note also that them actually maintain things. I'm in such shock, such joyous shock. So, let me have, and Doyle is, how old is your executive?
Oh, we're brand new. We're just installed in October.
Okay, so.
Yeah, so.
The Basketball Association, as on schedule, had their elections, and they now have a female president.
Correct, first time.
Girl
Yes.
power season carrying on. Oh, sorry, let me not. All right, so they're now being led by a female. It's interesting that
Miss Kebrananton, to be exact.
Miss Kebrananton, and I know that the maintenance is happening. Has that place been maintained before?
Yeah, I think in 2014, the former executive did some work up there.
Sorry, Daryl.
But I think to the extent of what we're doing now, I would say no. Not since the complex has been built. We have taken on the task of.
You know what? Stop. let me pause you. Let's go back. We're talking about this complex. Now, our audience is not only local, but we have a fairly wide international audience. So let's tell them where is the headquarters or the home of basketball in Antigua Barbuda?
Home of basketball presently is the JSC Sports Complex, and that's located off Old Palm Road and Simon Boulevard Drive. So that's that.
And it's a covered, that's the correct word, facility?
It's a covered facility.
Not indoor, covered.
We're desperately in need of an indoor. So if anybody out there listening outside of Antigua, in Antigua, that has the means, we're so desperately in need of an indoor.
Okay, we'll come to why we want the indoor now. But then, so tell me now, what is happening? Do you have any idea how old that facility is?
It's been there since I was a little boy.
That's what I was thinking to myself.
It was there when Lester Bryant Bird was in office, and he was, the representative for Release. I think just about when. Actually, no, it was actually before Stanford time, because I think he had
attempted to upgrade.
Had upgraded,
right?
And it was there before him,
right?
Way before him.
So over the years, we've had this facility that it's been touch and go. And why did the association now feel this need to undertake this? And before I ask that, though, I know that there have been talks for years, decades, about the need to upgrade and overhaul the facility, and we've had some cosmetics. But to me, you guys seem to be digging in.
Well, it's still cosmetics, but we're just doing a little bit more. I mean, of course, when you understand the sport of basketball, you'll understand the wear and tear that happens to the youths while playing basketball. Ankle injuries, knee injuries, and technology has developed so much. People have moved away from playing on these hard surfaces because they find it does more damage to your joints than anything else. Okay. So you'd find in the US a lot of these people are playing on wooden floors with springs underneath them and stuff like that. So cushions, they fall when they jump, or the landing, when they jump and stuff like that, and it doesn't send that much shock to your joints, as opposed to what we have down here. So you'd find the lifespan of our players a lot more shorter than people who are playing on better.
Not that old man that play forever.
No, listen.
When I say
lifespan, we're not talking about life and death. We're talking about the ability to continue playing without grievous injuries.
Okay.
So a lot of these old people that you still play, if you notice, some people call them the Benga Club and this and that, because they have to wear all these ton of braces and rub down so often and inject. And
they take some beating on the ground.
They're tough.
Yeah, man.
I mean, I'll guarantee that. I mean, we have some of the toughest, players coming out of our regions because of the conditions that we have to play under. But in terms of longevity and continuity in terms of playing your trade as a sportsman, it's shortened because you don't have that nice facility, that comfort, to play on like others. And when you're talking about, we have now advanced into trying to get overseas people down here to play. A lot of them are reluctant to come and play because they don't want to come and play on the surface. They're thinking about their career. Long term. So they don't want to come and, get themselves damaged or, damage a knee, ankle and so on, and what we have down here.
So what are we getting? Are we getting any improvement in that, or is it that we're getting a midpoint? Where are we?
We're seeking to put something in place that works for the facility that we have. What we have is an outdoor facility, right? It's just covered. That's all. It's just covered, right? So you can't put down wooden floor and all this kind of stuff underneath of what we have.
Right.
So what we've done, we've engaged a company out of the US that has developed kind of hard synthetic material, rubberish material, that's adequate for outdoor facilities. It's durable, it cushions the landing and so on when the players jump and move about, and it's not as hard as the barber green or concrete that we're accustomed to playing on. And so we see that as an investment in the the youths, the future of the youths playing basketball, in Antigua. I mean, we have had quite a bit of people go off and get scholarships and so on to play in the U.S. Some reach further than others, but we're hoping that we can one day boast, of a son of the soil that's in the NBA or in some of the big European leagues, But in order to do that, you got to start from the ground up.
Okay. So this material that we're getting, rather the question I should ask. So the other courts that we have now, what is the surface that they get?
Barber green. They're barber green, and then they use I can't remember what the material name is. A kind of paint like they put over it.
It's paint? I thought it was like some.
Like what they do the tennis courts. I can't remember the exact name of the material.
Let me make it clear. My favorite sport is spectating, as I'm sure you know. Boss spectator. That's a very serious sport.
I would have chosen another one, but if you say spectating, no problem.
Sport? What other sport I play? Remember, it's why I play now.
Anyway, we on radio, so let me
Praise the Lord. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Thank God for radio. Yes. So, in addition to that, and you have who's paying for this?
Well, that's a good question. The executive immediately went to work after we were installed, and we looked at some of the things that we think we need to put in place for the start of the season, which is about January 20th. And so we went out into the business world, letters, calls, schedule meetings, show up at your office, everything we had to do to try to raise funds to get these things done. Last year, you're playing Ababa and rain comes and the roof leaks. The game has to stop. Somebody has to mop it up, make sure it's dry properly.
Yes.
Because if it's not dried properly, somebody's going to go slip on it. Then you might have somebody hitting their head, breaking an ankle, busting a knee, whatever it is. So we deemed, okay, we need to get this roof fixed, right? We looked at the floor, the whole situation, floor again, another issue. So we said we need to get this done. And there are a number of other things that needs to be fixed at the facility, but we had to prioritize them. So we went out and we got a few business folks to help out. We're not there 100%, but we are a bunch that if we make up our mind that we're doing something, we're doing it. So I'm still appealing to all those business people listening to us. Ababa has space for your money. So if you if you want to be a good corporate citizen and you want to put your money somewhere where it's doing some good, helping the youths, keeping them off the streets, giving them an opportunity to build a career, because there is a career in basketball. I mean, we have players from Antigua who have been to Santo Domingo and played for money because they have professional leagues there, possible China, Europe, So there is basketball can be a good career for someone, right? So if you're good at it, you can make money at it. You just got to put yourself in the right company.
Sticking with this of getting corporate support, and you made a very good case for the fact that it contributes to youth development. But I'm a corporate entity. Yes, of course I want to do the youth, but this is a business. So besides the fact that I am going to get the pat on the shoulder reward in heaven for helping out the youth, what else does the Basketball Association offer persons who want to assist, I would say invest in this project?
Well, there's avenues for, advertising. There's avenues for synergies. We can sit down, look at ways to boost your business, see if we can utilize our players to promote your business. We have now gone into the live streaming realm. So if you're an international company and you're looking to get your name out there more, like some of these hotels and stuff like that, when we streamed a few of the games last year with the CBA players and them being here, we got thousands and thousands of people viewing these games online.
I'm going to tell you about one of those games. I like to commentate on sports, right? I commentate a whole basketball game.
Really?
And people convinced that I was not there. I was watching it from the comfort of my TV. That's the quality.
And commentated with.
I'm on Facebook page saying how it's going, how things going. I mean, that was the quality of the feed. I'm saying that. So of course, and I mentioned that because that is a really good avenue for me. I think the corporate sponsors can really get there.
Yeah, and those are just a few of the things. I mean, if you really put our heads together, I'm quite sure we can come up with a lot of different things. I mean, like I say, I mean, I'm not coming off of the agenda of the indoor stadium. I mean, you could have the state insurance complex. Just like you have in America, you have the American Airlines Arena, and you have.
I agree. I agree.
Seriously, I mean, so you have a lot of these people like to build some nice, buildings and so on, and say, okay, yeah, that's build a nice basketball court and put your name on it.
Do you think, we're going to come back specifically to basketball, but you have worked as a promoter. You also have run a number of business enterprises and so on. Do you think that, what do you think it is that does not elicit the kinds of support from the private sector that is required to really move sports and culture and all those things forward?
It's a tough question.
Or have you ever thought about it? Because you see, you get to sit on both sides. On one hand, you're up at Destination Area 51 where I'm coming to seek sponsorship. Mm-hmm. Right. On the other hand, you are involved in a basketball club, or you're now PR of the association that needs to get monies out of the pocket of the very businesses you run. How do you strike a balance with something like that?
I think it's just a matter of businesses sitting down and seeing how they can benefit, how they can use their sponsorship to their advantage in terms of increasing sales or increasing publicity. It just depends on what you're looking for the business. What I find the most in Antigua is that a lot of people don't believe in marketing, and they don't understand marketing, and so they don't understand the concept of the marketing spend. In that people think, okay, look, you give $5 now, and you're going to get back $15 tomorrow. No, right?
Tonight.
That's really far-fetched, when you look at marketing. Marketing is an investment now for the future. So you're investing your money now, right, to make money down the road. Down the road could be a month, 2 months, 5 years, 10 years. Some of these companies now that you associate colors with, or you associate logos with, or you associate name with, or you associate taste with, it took them years and years and years and years to build that.
And not only did it take them years, but my favorite ones, the two that I use now when I teach, my two companies that I use about marketing. KFC never stops marketing. The question is really, the whole world knows KFC. Does KFC need to market?
Yes, they do.
But KFC says, I want to make sure that I remain market leader.
The day you wake up and say, I am selling enough, I'm making enough, I don't need to do anything else more, is the day that the person one step behind you becomes 2 steps in front of you, right? Because they're continuously trying to get to your position or more. So the minute you stop, you give them that advantage. Marketing is very important for each business.
And the reason why I segued into that briefly with Doyle is because, again, the basketball association, the football association, all of the tennis association, everybody, it really needs a lot of the corporate community to become involved in to make sure that we can transition and all these opportunities that we'll talk on later. So you did do sidestep when I asked you to give me an estimated cost for this initiative.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
I didn't hear an estimate.
Yeah,
because, I don't have the floor itself that we're installing. That's upwards of about, I think, 24,000 US. It's a big investment. Fixing the roof and stuff like that, it's a couple thousand again. We had to buy paint. We did about 10 5-gallon pails of paint to repaint the facilities. We rented power wash to wash out. We had forklifts up there. So it's a costly initiative. And then when you look at the cost of actually running the league, paying the refs, paying the table officials, finding prize monies, finding trophies and stuff like that, it's costly. And these games are running 6 months.
So what is I know we're talking corporate support, but in terms of spectators and that revenue from the persons on the ground.
That's not a lot. I mean, you're charging $5, $10 at the gate to come in, and you might make a $2,500 in a night, on a good night. Right.
Do you think there's scope to adjust the admission fee, especially since you've been looking at the quality of what you're putting out?
Well, there's scope to adjust it, but the thing is, you can't really touch that until you've risen the level of the game, because once the level of the game rises and people have an excitement to look forward to, then they'll want to pay to come in to see it. And this is one of the things that, you can't really put the, the egg before the chicken or chicken before the egg. You know? So you got to give people something to want to come and pay to watch. You know what I mean? Apart from before the prior executive, for me, basketball was a bit dormant in Antigua. The former executive under the presidency of Darryl Matthew, it started to build some vibe, and now we're hoping to take it from that level now to an even higher level. You understand? So people now get excited about coming out watching certain teams.
Yes.
Watching certain games.
I'll mash up my team. It's all right.
Which team is that?
False.
Was the mash up, man?
No, man. All over the place.
You just wait until...
My point people still playing forward. That's why I back them, right? I'm point people play for them.
Your point people play for overs?
Yeah. Well, Rasta still play for them.
Tal, you.
No, Rasta didn't play for them last year. That's true.
Rasta, you got
and
Kareem.
Kareem. Is Kareem?
Mackerel,
yes. Mackerel is still with them. Mackerel played with them last year, right?
Played them last year.
Right, that's why I still there. So where Mackerel gone? Go
Patter, say back Patter now, because Rasta and Mackerel in Patter.
Okay, I'm going to Patters. New team, Patters. That's it. That's easy. Joel, I'm over by you now. Patters, yes. So, what is the capacity, though, of that facility? And do you think that the capacity is ideal for the sport? In terms of the seating capacity? No,
because, it limits you as to what you can do. For instance, if we were to look at, let's say, inviting an international team down to do a game, we're talking about sports tourism now, right? In order to pay for that, you need a lot more seating in place. You need concession stands and stuff like that, where you can sell drinks and stuff like that, refreshments and stuff, right? So, and then you need a proper facility, because, as I say, an international team won't come down and play on the kind of service we have. So, I would say no. Our national team is now doing better than it ever did. For a while, we're now going off to another segment of the international tournament. We did well the other day. So, all that, when they had the bid for a destination to do the tournaments, we couldn't put in a bid.
Why not?
Because we don't have the facilities.
So, here's my question on the facilities. I did some checking, and sometimes in the U.S., the facilities, they have the playing area. Playing area can move.
In the US, they have multi-use for some of them.
Right.
And those are big money stadium, you know what I mean?
Okay, because I'm asking.
Because sometimes you play basketball and the next time they play
football
hockey
and hockey and all kind of things.
So,
so do you think there's scope then? And the reason I asked
like that,
I asked that for a reason. No, hold on. I asked that for a reason because I know cycling wants a facility. I'm looking at the sports. Cycling wants a facility. Basketball wants a bigger indoor facility. Volleyball has a...
Hold on, let me correct you.
Volleyball has a cute
I want to get the wrong
thing.
thing. Not a bigger indoor facility, because we don't have an indoor facility.
I mean, okay, basketball wants a indoor facility that has a larger capacity.
Right.
Better?
Right.
Cycling would like a velodrome. Volleyball could do with a bigger space because they have an indoor facility, but very limited seating. I am asking from a basketball perspective and I'm thinking of, if everybody wants this kind of indoor facility, is there scope perhaps for all the associations who could benefit from an indoor facility to perhaps start doing some joint soliciting, joint initiatives to see if we can get a proper quality indoor facility in Antigua?
I guess there's always scope to sit down and do some kind of collaboration, but you'd have to really look at how each discipline would work, together in terms of, okay, does volleyball run the tournaments at the same time basketball run the tournaments? How long is it for?
Well, clearly we're going to schedule all those things.
But is there going to be any interlapping? Because it's only 12 months in a year. So if basketball running for 6 months.
Now, bearing in mind, and I say that from this point of view, bearing in mind that, for example, we're talking about the main basketball facility.
Right.
That is being upgraded.
But if you have a main basketball facility, it means that it's a facility that's been utilized.
No, wait, work with me. We're talking about the main basketball facility, but it is not the only place that basketball is played officially, because there are games that happens under the auspices of the association in different divisions, other places.
Correct.
Right? So then, let's say, for example, we were to get this really nice multi-use. And one of the reasons why I'm picking multi-use, if you'll permit me, because I am looking at this great work that you guys are doing, and I am going to ask if you all have factored in the annual maintenance costs in that. Because Antigua do pretty things, and then we forget about maintenance. Right?
Well,
That's one. And so let me just add this and then you can respond. That's one. And two, so my thought is if we were to somehow manage to get a number of associations working together, working their schedule, netball too, working their schedule, working how they do the whole issue of sports tourism, who brings in when and who will differ, all in the name of maintaining the overall facility. If you think that could get us starting to look real next level movements.
Yeah, I hear you, but I'm saying it's going to be difficult with basketball concerned because basketball is a year-round thing. I mean, after the domestic league, which is a BABA, you still have business league, you know, and then you still, you know, we're still putting in place for.
But we
stuff
can
for
play the
you.
business league somewhere else.
Yeah, but why are you going to go and this is what we're talking about? Why are we going to put our players on something else when this is the right thing for them to be on? Like
Because you're not putting all. So are you suggesting to me then that if we were to get an indoor facility with the right court, I'm going to ask about the court now, Grace Farm. What kind of
most indoor facilities would have more than one court on it. So
we could play everything. So then the community facilities would be left for just mostly recreational use.
Are mostly for like the individual clubs to do their training
so.
outside of the official thing. You understand?
Cool. All right, I got you.
Yeah, because remember we have 3 different divisions: first, second, and third, right? And so sometimes even with second and third, you have them simultaneously playing at different facilities, right? But it's a year-round thing for basketball. So school basketball, ABABA, business league, and then other leagues may jump in. It will cross over into volleyball time, netball time, and then have a fight for use of the facility.
Again, like I said, I raised it because I know how scarce funds are in terms of doing things like these for sports. If we switching up a little bit now, you under the previous executive, like you said, work started. Like in football, where they've brought in a number of overseas players to address the quality. I see basketball has also moved along that line. What is the objective, as far as you're aware, behind the introduction of external players? Should I put it that way? Is there an effort to ensure that the quality coming is at least a notch above what we have?
Well, yes, and let me say, in my opinion, because I don't officially know the genesis of the start of it, because again, it was started under the other executive. But from what my understanding is that it was an opportunity, one, for our players to get a break to go to their league, because it's from the CBA, Central Basketball Association, which is a league that's run in the US, and an opportunity for their players to come our way, right? And so at any point, persons viewing, watching can see, this guy from Antigua look good, maybe we should draft him to play in our league.
Okay. That sounds good.
And so that's one thing. It gives us some international recognition. 2, 3, it gives our guys an opportunity to play against a higher standard of individuals rather than just the same competition over and over. So now you're playing against people that you really haven't seen played before. You don't know how to mark them. You don't know what their strong points is. So you just gotta really play the game like how the game is supposed to be played, as opposed to saying, okay, listen, let me ease off of Hollywood, become you get us knock a jab step and turn left and then, you know what I mean? All right. So it helps in many ways. As I was saying this morning, another program. At one time, Stingers brought in a Cuban, and our big guys, he was a big guy. Our big guys stepped up their game that year because they had somebody that they're seeing different moves from, playing at a different level, and so you want to now play at that level. So that helps as well. You know what I mean? It also helps because it brings a different excitement to the league for the patrons. patrons want to come out now and watch the game. You know, they're not no longer just seeing mackerel or koi. You know, jumping just after the feature line and dunking the ball over. Man, they're seeing 5 or 6 other people doing that.
Doing the same thing.
You know
yes.
what I mean? You know, and there was a lot of excitement in the league last year watching the games from a fan standpoint and team standpoint. You know what I mean? Even when teams are not playing their upper jersey, they're watching the games because nobody want to miss the action.
Or you want to start to figure out your strategy of how to deal with the
Oh, exactly. You know what I mean? Teams are now becoming more professional. You know, have more clubs being formed as opposed to just having teams. So you had Ovals being formed into a club. You had Flyers being formed into a club. Stingers is formed into a club.
What does that mean that they're moving from
Right,
teams to club?
Team, you know, you just show up, you're there, you know, you play every year. Club now, you know, you're an organization now. You have rules, you have bylaws, you have, you know, different disciplinary measures.
Okay.
You know what I mean? You're now appealing to the corporate citizenship of the country. You know what I mean? You're doing things more professionally, you know. Otters this year now has decided to go club. They've formed themselves into a club now. So now instead of having Otters coolers and Otters full throttle is one body, one club.
They weren't all one before?
No. It was it was different, you know. So like for argument's sake, last year when Otters coolers would have won out second division and supposed to be advanced to first, they're saying, no, okay, listen, look, we want to stay in second and become a development team for the first division team.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Which makes sense.
Right.
Exactly.
So we're having a lot more of that now coming in.
Right. And so now what you're having now is a little bit more moving in the direction of planning for the future.
So who's leading? Because you said a number of clubs are doing it. Is it that the clubs are recognizing? Is it that the management teams around those various teams, which are now becoming clubs, are recognizing the need for that? Or is there a move by the association to encourage?
It's a combination of all. And, you know, it's a matter of seeing, okay, listen, these guys are successful because they're organized. They're professional. They're putting things in place. So if we want to be looked at that way, if we want to attract sponsorship for our season, if we want to attract good players, we need to move in this direction as well.
Okay.
So whatever they're doing that's working for them, we need to step up to the plate and do the same. You know, and you find that now moving throughout the whole Division 1, you know, arena. So instead of now, like 4 years ago, it's 3 teams, which was Braves, Flyers, and probably Ovals.
Ovals, right.
You know, have Braves, Flyers, Ovals, Stingers, Potters, Otters.
Yeah, there's more variety and diversity.
And so it's more competitive. It's more worthwhile going to watch.
Time for point stars.
So all you really need now is another 4 teams in Division 1 now to step up the game, and now Division 1 becomes the elite league they want it to be.
Hold on.
Now
Point stars coming. We're coming back from the bottom. We're coming back.
Point stars still have a ways to go.
We're coming back.
Still have a ways to go.
Remember we were there, you know. So we fell off the wagon, so it's time to come back. Before Stingers and so on, we were there.
Right, but you know, people don't remember success, you know. So
I know, that's why I said we have to come back. No, I know, only especially here. Right. So so you're saying that we I think, and I agree with you, that having brought in some external talent, it has helped to raise the quality of the game. It's helped to professionalize the sport to some extent.
Of course.
Is there any limitation on the number of players that can be involved in any team?
Yeah, the association have decided to put limits on that, so we don't allow the teams to have more than 4 overseas players playing for a team. Huh?
Why?
We don't want to have a situation where our developing talents that we're planning to develop, our youngsters and so on, come up and don't have a place. You know, yes, it's good to have the excitement of the overseas players coming to boost it, but still the main agenda is really to develop our youths to a level where we can export them.
Really?
Yeah.
I need to export some of y'all executives. Anyway, yeah. To other sports locally, really. It's not to go any out of the country. Unfortunately, it's to other sports locally. Now, you mentioned about that the objective being to develop our talent to export. 2 questions. One, has any of our players, or have any of our players to date benefited from this exchange initiative where players from the CBA come down to us?
It's just started. This is only the second year. I mean, last year was really the inaugural one. You know, this year we looked at what happened last year and we wanted to make it more fair across the board. So, we're putting a draft system in place, first time ever.
I'm looking forward to hearing about that.
So you have an actual a draft for the CBA players. So it's not a matter of
so the weakest team get in the first week?
Right. So it's not a matter of first come, first serve like last year. So you come with your pocket full of money and it's like, okay, yeah, me want this one. No.
When the weak hold on. I understand that approach. But when the weakest team gets the player that could command some funds, who's responsible now for covering that cost?
Well, it's how we have it set up. It's a collaborative effort between Ababa, the CBA, and the teams. So no one person bears the burden. You have to look at
so CBA travel. Is putting money into this?
Yes. And we got to commend them for that, yes.
That sounds great. Okay, go ahead.
So, each partner takes care of one aspect of that whole arrangement. You have air travel, you have hotel accommodations, and you have, of course, them eating and
hotel.
And so well, let me say living accommodations. Okay. Let me not say hotel because it doesn't have to be hotel.
Right, but it has to be of a certain minimum standard.
Right, of course.
All right, okay.
Right.
And in terms of the feedback from the players themselves that came, how was that?
The feedback was good, if you notice, a few of them are coming back, right? Obviously because they had a good time here last year. As a matter of fact, I know one of them who played here last year. After he left, he actually got a contract to do some playing again in Europe. You know what I mean? So, people are watching. You know what I mean? Most of these guys are looking at this as an opportunity because when you look at, even in the US, where you have a saturation of basketball players, opportunities for them is not that easy. Only the elite make it to college, and then only the elite of the elite make it to the NBA. And so the rest of them have to now go find opportunities elsewhere. And what most of the territories ask you is if you have any overseas experience. So for them, Antigua's
always experience. Oh, perfect. Okay, cool. So now, just a final point, because you wouldn't believe time has flown. We're almost at the end of our segment, and I want to thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, I've been speaking to Doyle Carter, the Public Relations Officer for ABBA, the Antigua Barbuda Basketball Association. Dancing Queen, yes. And so you mentioned about the whole youth development, professionalizing the whole program.
Not professionalizing.
Sorry.
Can we be careful?
No. I take that back. Youth development in terms of creating opportunities to facilitate their growth in the sport. How has that been going?
Well, like I said, we're installed in October. The league starts in January. The national team has to go off to a tournament in February. So, yeah.
So that means some of our players are going to be leaving before the...
Just for probably a weekend or so. Just to the tournament,
okay. I thought it was longer.
So, there's a lot that the executive had to do in a very short time with nothing much available to them. And so we have already met to put together our plans or discuss some of the ideas we had for our youth program, right, which will come and stream, I guess, mostly towards the end of the Ababa season, because it's a 4-year term the executive has.
Oh, right? Nice.
And so when you look at all you have to do, you have to prioritize what you're going to tackle first.
Especially in terms of resources available.
Yes, exactly. So with the league starting in January, we had to start looking at the facilities, what we needed to do there. Of course, with the national team traveling, we have to start looking at that as well. And then once, those things are off the ground, then we can start going to the next phase in terms of putting together our final plans for youth and youth development, which includes male and female basketball. Okay. I wanted to drop the female, so I don't want to ask me the question. Ask me what about the female?
No. For the record, yes, I am female, but I don't obsess. I just know that we do what we have to do, and when it happens, we celebrate it. Beyond that, we're good. Right. So, I think, is there anything? I mean, we covered the whole issue of the corporate involvement. We covered the issue
and every time you mention, I can't help but to say, listen, we need as much assistance as we can get. Basketball is not a sport that have a revenue stream. As I said, the little we pick up at the gate can only do so much, right? And there's so much more to do, okay? I mean, we want to put stuff in place like scholarship funds for the kids who probably can get a scholarship, but the parents can't afford it. We're going to require corporate Antigua to come on board. So, we're encouraging that we need to start really looking at developing our sports and our athletes in our small nations as much as possible. Put some effort into that, especially to the politicians as well too. Because if you hear about budgeting and budgeting, but you don't really hear how much are going into some of these sports disciplines to really help the athletes.
So I guess now you have an opportunity. I think the budget speech is around the corner. So
too late to make the budget speech, but
no. I don't want you to make the budget speech. I want you to perhaps present your speech in terms of how, in like when you're in the States and so on, you would see various lobbying groups vocalize their vision and how they see their fit. We just cuss, so time for top cuss and vocalize the vision and
like I say, if you've been watching the landscape in Antigua, I mean, we have been doing better and better at sports. Track and field, basketball. We have gone to realms this time around that we have not been before. Tennis.
You're making me feel like a devil's advocate, but I'm not going to do it. On that note,
we're doing better at sports. So we need and sports overall. I'm not just talking about basketball. We need to put some effort into our athletes.
Now, on that note, I would like to thank you for coming in. It was a pleasure speaking to you. I'm hoping our audience got to understand that we weren't just about talking about, basketball, but integrating basketball into the whole issue of business and development and so on. And I want to wish your association the very best.
So before I leave,
yes.
Today is Wednesday. Our CBA players land this evening.
Oh,
so
nice.
We have 10 CBA players coming in this evening. And on Saturday and Sunday, we'll be doing some exhibition games. They'll be playing against the local version of the national team.
Okay.
Right? And so we're asking patrons to come out. They will be a charge at the gate.
$20?
Basketball needs as much
$20?
money. Only $10. $5.
You're still going back to that little bit.
Yeah, because you see, listen.
All right.
Petra,
Yeah.
Saturday night a free concert, If you get charged too much day, right? People not going to come out. Can watch the basketball. So I'm encouraging people.
I'm trying not to be devil's advocate, and you're going there.
So we're encouraging all those who are going to the concert, come to basketball first. Remember, the concert is free anyway. So, you can come to the basketball first, sit down, get a game or two, and then you go down and, shake a leg or two, I know most concerts, the real hype artists then come on late, so don't worry about it.
You notice me not saying about the concert, right? Okay.
Right? So, so Saturday and Sunday at Jesse. We'll have exhibition games. You'll see more information on the ABBA Facebook page and, of course, through different means of putting that information out. We'd like you to come out and support us, see what's going on. It'll be a draft system, so the exhibition game on Saturday, another game on Sunday, and then the teams get to choose the players that they desire to help their team. Somebody might be looking for a guard, somebody might be looking for a forward. You get to choose which one you want.
Okay.
That happens on Sunday. And then basketball season begins on January 20th.
Well, Saturday I have a function. No, it's not the free concert. I haven't been. I don't ever plan to go while it's the way it is now. I have another function on Saturday, and Sunday I might come through. Might come through.
There you go.
Bring We're the Ones.
Let's walk with a little extra money for me.
You don't tell me $10. So maybe $10. Nah, pay nothing. $10. Yes. So Doyle, thank you very much for being with us, and stay locked. Any information you have, feel free to pass it on. I will be glad to share with my listening and viewing audience. By the way, you were on Facebook Live. Did I tell you this from the start? You had your good face on, so you're safe.
Yeah. I won't comment on that. That's what friends do to you, but that's okay.
Thank you, darling, and we will stay in touch.
We will.
All the best.
Thank
All
you.
right. Okay, thanks. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. We had Doyle Carter, and without any delay or ado, we're going to now switch into our other segment. And hello, good afternoon. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Martin, and how are you?
I'm doing well. I was wondering if we got postponed or something.
No. You're actually live now with my audience. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to We're the Ones, Mr. Martin, again for the second time. Mr. Martin, as I indicated earlier, is with us today to share a bit about the whole issue of how we do investment in our small Caribbean islands. I say islands because while we're speaking up in Antigua, of course, Mr. Martin is from St. Kitts. And so, to him. And so, of course, we will be discussing the whole matter of investment in small islands. Mr. Martin, would you take 2 minutes and just share a bit of your background with my audience, please?
Well, as Petra said, I'm from St. Kitts and Nevis. I'm currently an assistant professor at Utah Valley University, Woodbury School of Business. I got my PhD from Texas Tech University in financial planning, and I have a background in personal finance. I also own a wealth management company, and I'm very in tune with investments, and currently writing a book on investment opportunities in the Caribbean.
I'm going to peep a few of those cards. That will be a good place to start. Why do you think you need to write about investment opportunities in the Caribbean? I'm curious.
So we're not really that
savvy,
participatory when it comes to investments. You know, we know a lot about debt. We use credit a lot. You see it everywhere throughout the islands, but we don't see a lot of participation when it comes broadly to investing. And what usually people, in talking to people, they usually say, well, I don't know where to start. I don't know how to start. I don't know what opportunities exist. So, you know, it came out of that idea to sort of simplify the process and be able to point people in the direction where they could start investing, because it's needed to accumulate any wealth, especially in a region where we don't have an efficient retirement system in place.
That's a good point to jump off from. When you say efficient retirement system, as compared to what? What do you mean by that?
Well, if you look at most developed or developing countries in Europe, the US, Canada, Australia, even some African nations, they've been placing heavy emphasis on retirement because they realize that aging population that goes into the next 20 years after they finish working, they don't have that income in order to support themselves. So they usually either one become, I don't want to use the word burden, but responsibility, financial responsibility of their children. Mm-hmm. And it creates what is called a sandwich generation, where you have these parents, like the older ones in our society now, that's nearing the 65, 70. The children now have to be responsible for them financially, as well as they have to also be responsible for their own children, and that puts a lot of financial strain on the household. Mm-hmm. We have government that offers pensions regionally. We do have Social Security, but for those citizens not working for government, then they need some sort of assistance from the private sector into offering retirement plans, and we don't see a lot of them. We have the legislation. I know there are a few companies that offer retirement plans, but not nearly at the level that is needed to be sustainable, especially for economic growth.
So if we were to be thinking along, it's the new year, and, you know, people normally make a lot of resolutions about what they're going to do and what they're going to do. We're not looking at it in this discussion from a resolution perspective, but we're looking at it as it's time to have some game changers in terms of how we look at the issue of wealth management and investment. And I am about, say, 50. And I work a 9 to 5. I earn maybe $4,000 or $5,000 a month. I'm living in a small island. What possible investment options could there be that I could convert my savings into now, or is it too late?
Well, at 50, if you're looking at the remaining work life of 10 to 15 years, it's going to be a lot harder than someone starting out in their mid-20s, early 30s.
We're going to go back to the young people, but I wanted to focus in on that age group first, then we'll work our way backwards.
Okay, that's fine. Mm-hmm. So at the 50s, it's going to take a significant portion of disposable income in order to prepare for retirement and to accumulate wealth over a shorter period. And it's a function of compounding interest, right, time value of money. But let's assume that you have a pot of cash you've been saving over your work life. What would I do? The biggest challenge for someone in retirement will be income. because you'll get a reduction in income even if you have a pension. So looking at opportunities now, I would, one, maybe look at the Eastern Caribbean Stock Exchange and invest in some government debt. That would be provide some income stream. Investment in government bonds. I know the island of Antigua and Barbuda, they have a number of bonds that are listed on the exchange. You can also look into high dividend paying stocks like utility companies also listed on the Eastern Caribbean Stock Exchange, like St. Lucia Electric, Electric
yes.
something.
Grand Lake.
Right, so they provide significant dividends that would be a form of income stream. And another one, maybe if you have the opportunity, and this is one I don't really recommend very often because I'm not truly a fan. It has to be, the calculations and numbers have to be correct. But going to real estate, maybe some rental property if you can, if it's not a financial burden, because that will provide an income stream. And the way that rent is set up, it's not excellent. When we're looking at educational tourism and those types of other opportunities, you might be able to get a decent return off of such a venture.
All right. You mentioned the stock exchange. I don't wanted to get to that later, but I think this is a good time to just throw that in there because the ECSC has been around for a while, but we still we know the government is a significant player on that. And I'm not even sure that there's a secondary market that has been developed for those securities. But there doesn't seem to be either an awareness or a take-up by the wider population of the options, investment options available there. Would you like to posit any reasons why you think this is so?
It's a lack of awareness, a lack of education. It takes financial knowledge to know that you're making a financial mistake. And ECCB via ECSC might feel that they have truly tried to educate the population on the benefits of investing, but I honestly think it's been a colossal failure. We're not seeing the type of movement that we would expect. Still, people are looking at insurance and cash value insurance specifically as their main source of investment, and that's just not correct. It's just not right. And I think it's just a general lack of awareness. People are afraid of what they don't know. The idea that, okay, I'm going to take my money from my savings account where I could go to the ATM and see my balance and give it to someone as a financial intermediary, then I'm going to own stock. But what do I actually own? I see the company, but what do I actually own? So they don't really understand that. And there's also a lack of trust in the system in general, stemming from some failed banks throughout the region. I know in Pinkett we had like the Bank of Commerce failure in the 70s. I'm not sure. I think in Antigua there was the Stanford debacle, and that creates some mistrust in the system. And, British American, Clico, these types of companies that just shut down and cost our citizens significant chunks of money, it's created mistrust. So we have to get past the mistrust and have a major education campaign. I personally have reached out to ECCB by their communication director, and only to not even get the courtesy of a response. So it's very upsetting because we need to encourage investments to counteract the negative effects of debt that we have in our society.
You mentioned two things in just now. You mentioned the cash value insurance as an investment. I know that some people have been hit by the Clico, Bico debacle, but it's still, that sector still continues to grow at a pace. I can think for Antigua, I'm amazed at how many persons are still seeing the insurance as their main retirement plan. It's their, it's everything still in for us in the region. Is that, since it's the only thing we know, I guess when I say that, the one that's most popular to us, but is that really the best way to go about building your portfolio? Or let me not say the best way. So many of us place so much emphasis on that terms, especially in terms of diversifying, for example? What are your thoughts?
I think regionally it's what's been available, and I understand why people would look at it because it's increased the test of time. And again, if you don't know any difference or you don't know an alternative, you'll stick with what you know. And also, if you look at the insurance companies, they have a dynamic sales team. Mm-hmm. All their agents are out in the community drumming up business. Mm-hmm. If you compare that to the Eastern Caribbean Stock Exchange, the financial intermediaries sit in the banks, and they don't go out to drum up business. Business has to come to them. So that's the one way where demand will always be higher for insurance. I'm not a fan of cash value as a way to grow wealth. I think insurance is there for protection. It's there to protect against your life, the loss of early loss of life. Mm-hmm. And investments is investments. The two serve a purpose in some other societies where tax benefits could be derived, but in our society, in the absence of tax burdens like income tax, etc., cash value, for me, isn't really that big of a benefit, except it being the only vehicle there to grow wealth. At least it used to be. But the Eastern Caribbean Stock Exchange, the Jamaican Stock Exchange, Barbados Stock Exchange, and Trinidad and Tobago Stock Exchange, they are accessible to our citizens. And we could look towards those 4 exchanges in the region as a way to grow that wealth outside of the insurance plans. Because you get a guaranteed return. Well, what if the return on the market is much more significant than the guarantee? Then you lose. Mm-hmm. And then the selling point is, well, you don't lose money, but they don't incorporate the effect of inflation. Okay. So your money doesn't grow. So there's many components that are missing, and they're going to show you a diagram and say, in 20 years you have $80,000. Well, $80,000 20 years from now is not $80,000 today. Mm-hmm. $80,000 20 years from now is more like $8,000 today. Okay. If we were to factor in inflation.
Okay, but then
I'm not a fan.
No, so here is where again we come back to the whole issue of education, because you just spoke about on this thing called inflation. As far as the general public is concerned, inflation high, everything gone up. I'm saying it in local parlance. Is it part of our challenge where our people do not understand the role that inflation really plays in their cost of living, in their net income? And if you think so, if for example, if we're going to begin to have discussions to educate our people about financial management and the whole issue of financial planning, how do we then get them to appreciate something like inflation and its importance in the process?
I think these are things that we should learn about somewhere along the way in our education system growing up. I never experienced it. I heard about them until I did economics at the Cape level. Mm-hmm. Inflation erodes your money, basically. It's basically an increase in consumer prices of a basic basket of goods. So you go to the supermarket, you get basic necessities year over year. Chances are it's more expensive. Now, regionally, according to out of ECCB, inflation has actually been managed somewhere between 2 to 4%. Mm-hmm. I find that hard to believe when I come back to the region and shocked that inflation is only between that range because the prices seem so significantly higher.
Hold on. But higher than where? Because remember, since we're discussing the whole issue of inflation, remember, we're judging inflation in terms of the price rises where you are. The reality is Caribbean prices just high, especially in OECs.
Yeah. They're high, but I'm talking year over year high. Right. Mm-hmm. Come back in 2017 versus coming in 2018, etc. So, and yes, prices are higher just because of landing costs and shipping and getting the goods there. So that should be an encouragement for anybody that wants to go to do sustainable agriculture in Antigua and the region at large. You could make some money and reduce the food import bill. But inflation has a negative effect on a dollar. So a dollar today is not worth $1 next year. Let's assume it's a 2% inflation, and next year that dollar is only worth 98 cents. And every year after that is going to have a reduction in purchasing power. The problem is that as inflation and prices has risen in our region, wages have really stayed stagnant and haven't really kept pace with inflation. And if you factor in housing costs, it's even more burdensome. So even as we're talking about investments, I think there's a strain when it comes to disposable income and even the ability to find income to invest. And that's why people decide, well, if I'm going to just do insurance, let me pay the extra $50 and get the one that gives me something at the end of the day, right? Because with term insurance, there's nothing at the end of the day.
Right.
But it reminds me of a story. This summer I did a financial workshop, and I spoke to a young man, and he had a $500,000 insurance policy, 4 kids. His premium was $800 a month, and I was making the argument for term insurance rather than cash value. He had a cash value policy. He was excited that he had it. And I said to him, okay, I went through a scenario, and I asked him, if you were to lose your job today, look at your household expenses. What's the first one that will go?
Insurance.
You don't want to guess what his answer was?
The insurance.
The insurance.
Yes.
And when you stop paying the premium,
you lose
then
everything.
The policy lapses, and you lose it.
Yep.
So if we have to make better financial decisions. You want to protect your family, protect your family. Go buy a term insurance policy. If you want to invest, invest. But I must say, ECSE and ECSSR, the regulatory board, they haven't made it easy for people like myself that has a passion for investing and want to spread investment advice to come and operate in the region. I know I'm probably going off tangent, so please forgive me.
No problem. Yeah,
it's a soapbox that's annoying because when I opened my business in Texas, it cost me $300 to start the company to get my LLC, and $155 to take the licensing exam, and $155 to register with the state of Texas, and I could open my doors. And there were some compliance things that came later. For me to operate in St. Kitts and Antigua and the rest of the region, I need to show proof of almost $100,000
US dollars, and that's to open a quasi.
That's just to start.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's just to start. And for me to open and show that kind of money, show that kind of liquidity, and have a $5,000 licensing fee annually, then the kind of charges that I have to pass on to the consumer is going to be cost prohibitive for them to even participate in the system. We are blocking people from participating with the way in which we set up the regulation.
I agree with you. I'm going to say it quietly because you over there and I here, so I'm going to get in trouble more than you would. But I agree with you.
I'm sorry.
No, and that's probably something because I'm hopeful. I'm sharing it with you and with my audience. Ladies and gentlemen, you are listening to We're the Ones on Point FM, and we're discussing the whole issue of financial planning and financial management, personal, and options that we can explore in terms of, improving our wealth earning capacity, wealth generating capacity. Now I have I'm going to switch topics slightly, and I have what could be considered a controversial question, especially in the Caribbean. And I hope my mother not listening because she's going to wring my neck for this one. Owning a home versus renting a house. Owning your own property versus renting a property. What are the pros and cons as it relates to accumulating wealth for retirement and other needs?
Yeah. Let me start. Most people used to look at home ownership as a dream, right? It's what we aspire to be homeowners. And there's been a new push where younger individuals are less likely to own homes, right? They're seeing it more as a burden. The positives of owning a home is, one, you get collateral, you get an asset, you get an appreciating asset. So every year, if you bought your house for $400,000, next year it might be worth $420,000. So you're getting some return. And some people look at their home as a way to fund their retirement. However, somewhere along the way, they build such an emotional, psychic attachment to the home that they don't want to sell it, and therefore it can no longer be used for retirement. But in our region, the home represents our largest asset in our household portfolio. Unfortunately, it also is the most illiquid asset, meaning not easily converted to cash, because we don't want to sell it. So it's really about the financial empowerment and also the psychic empowerment to know that you're turning your key to something that you own. Renters believe, rather than having to deal with paying property taxes and maintaining the home, I could use that extra money to do something, especially since we don't get any real tax benefits from property ownership. If it's a home in which you maybe have an apartment that you could generate some income off of, even better. So that's where I think a renter might see the appeal to generate additional income if they were to actually make the decision to build. So some renters, another reason why they may not be homeowners is because they can't afford the financial capital for the down payment. That's a significant aspect of it. And,
you mentioned the down payment, but I want to add a few. The property tax.
Okay.
Property taxes are high in our end of the world.
Yes.
The insurance is high in our
Yes.
end of the world. Maintenance. I drive around Antigua, and I'm amazed at how many homes that you see after a while they fall. The upkeep becomes an issue.
Upkeep's expensive, yes.
Right. And so I wonder, this is what I'm going to throw in, is that when we are looking at home, and because most of us, we want to build a home, a home of a particular size and quality.
I know. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Is it time, perhaps, as we discuss this whole issue of financial planning, for there to be perhaps a re-education? Because, let me back up. People like my parents, they insist that owning your own home is the ultimate. That is where it all ends and starts, possibly. But is it time for us, perhaps as part of this financial planning process, to do some re-education in terms of either A, you want to own your own home? Yes, look at the size in terms of the impact on your future earnings and your retirement potential. Because it makes sense, like you said, the whole issue of the illiquidity and the fact that, yes, you would have owned this beautiful home, but when you hit an older age, you can't sell it, you can't maintain it. What really does it bring to the table? The other thing too that I want to throw at you is that, we don't want nobody live with that way. So the rent you mentioned about the rental element. I want nobody live with me. I want nobody downstairs my house. I want nobody upstairs my house. You understand where I'm coming from? You know that. And for those who understand the dialect, I'm just saying, our Caribbean people don't want anybody living too near to them. So how do we balance those things in the education process, that if you don't die young, you are going to need income later on in life? How do we do the balance early? In terms of housing, we're looking at housing specifically before we make a switch.
It's a function of how we're socialized. As you said, as your parents believe home ownership to be the pinnacle of, I guess, what would really determine some sort of personal success, right? Because you own yours. And we started seeing the similar attitude still exists in society. I know it definitely exists in Thinkit. And I've seen it also in my visits to Antigua. We do need a re-education, but it's going to be on an individual level. It's going to be really hard for me to say, have one blanket response for everybody.
Agreed.
But you're right. Home ownership is not for everybody, especially not when you have a strain on income. If you have a disposable income under $4,000 a month, owning a home where you have to come out of pocket to build with the prices I see is going to go with 60% of your gross income, not even your disposable income. This is your take-home before taxes, and that's going to put a significant financial strain, especially if you have kids and want to do anything else. But then again, the problem that we're seeing is that rent is almost the same price as the mortgage, if not higher now.
Yes, that is true.
So it's almost like home ownership is a cheaper option for housing costs. And the banks aren't making it easier either, because the down payment, the legal fees, outside of the property taxes, insurance, and annual maintenance, etc., just to get it is going to put things almost into bankruptcy. It's a little frustrating in that the smaller guys in society are the ones fighting to make it. They're drowning even when they're being successful. Even when you went off and got college educated, come home and getting the good job, it's still a financial struggle. So on an individual level, we'd have to do it on a case-by-case basis, especially if they stand to inherit a home from their parents. They might not need to go get their own. But like you said earlier, they're still going to say, oh, I want my own house. It's my house. They want nobody to give me nothing. You know, I still hear that type of mentality. So if you're going to stand to inherit a home, maybe you might wait out and rent and then get the home and then you do what you need to do. But if you're going to go into home ownership, looking at the impact it could have on your financial life, you want to consider the potential of having some part of rental income. That's the only way it's going to work with our salaries and the level of fees and costs associated with home ownership. You're going to have to get that income to offset the losses that's there. And the benefit of having such a high rental income market is that it stands to your benefit. You're going to get more money for a one-bedroom today than you would 10 years ago.
That's true. Okay.
So
now I'm going to take you upwards now. Earlier we looked at someone who's 50, 40, 50, 55.
Okay.
You are 20s. You haven't gone to university. You finished your high school, you worked, you may have gone to local college, you worked a few years, you have a few dollars. You have a few dollars in the bank. The bank is paying 1.5% to 2% interest. And in addition to that, they're charging you fees to keep the money in the bank, $20 a month. So by the time you're done paying that fee, you would have actually not even earned the interest. You might even actually be losing in your net savings because you were paying all these fees, right? You're that age, and you're hearing this thing called financial planning and financial management. You don't want to. You're not interested in being an entrepreneur. You just want to work. You want to know you're able to put aside a nest egg, so that when you have plans later, children want to go to college, you want to build that house, you want to travel. How would you advise? And I notice I kind of built a general template, and it's not so much that we want to give, because of course, it would be dependent on each individual person. But what are some of the general things that would be taken into consideration for someone like that?
Someone at age 20 is in the first step of their life cycle, which is the pre-production. They're making money, but not as much money as they could make, not as much money as they can make if they continue to invest in their human capital for education and skills that they would get over their work life. It's really difficult. For them, I would start with, okay, if you have all these goals and things you want to accomplish, let's try to structure these goals in such a way that they move beyond just being dreams. Because a lot of the things that we say we want to do, they're just dreams. And we never accomplish them because we don't really structure them into SMART goals. They're not specific, they're not measurable, they're not attainable, they're neither realistic or time-bound. So I would sit with that individual and try to come up with a set of goals, maybe 5. Some short terms, which is under a year, some intermediate 1 to 3, and some over 3 years. And try to communicate to them that, under 1 and maybe up to 1 to 3, the short to intermediate, the savings account in your bank is actually good enough. Okay. And I might actually encourage them to look beyond the bank and go and open an account with a credit union, because at least in the credit union, you become a shareholder and you get some benefit that stems from that. So in the short term, looking at that, get their financial goals, figure out their investment time horizon. And for the longer term goal, I want to know, it would be an encouragement for them to, let's start to maybe look at, and I know it's like beating a dead horse, but I would encourage them to go into the Eastern Caribbean Stock Exchange. Pick up some utility companies, some financial companies. That's mainly what we have. And start to make some monthly investment. If you have an extra $200, go to your intermediary, your broker, the registered rep, whatever they're called, give that $200, buy some shares. And do that every month if you can. And over time, it grows. Over time, it develops. And when you get dividends, which is the companies paying out a portion of their profits to you as a shareholder, just reinvest the dividends, and then you just continue doing that. Continue doing that. That process is called dollar cost averaging. So it takes a savings. So for the short-term goals, we keep that in the bank. We make sure we have an emergency fund just in case you lose your job. There's a medical emergency, something happens. And then for something longer, like retirement or travel, then we look towards the Eastern Caribbean Stock Exchange as an option.
Okay, all right. Now, you mentioned about, you say you could put about $200 a month into the
Depending on what you could afford, yeah.
Right, yeah. I'm using an example. Can you really call up a broker, an ECSC broker, and invest $200? You think they'd take you seriously?
They're no limits.
No, I know. No. My question. We know there are no limits, but do you think that you could go call a broker, ECSC broker, and say, I have $200 to invest? What shares would you recommend? Do you think they deal in small numbers? That's my question. And I'm asking you this, bearing in mind what you said about the cost to establish the brokerage.
Yeah. Well, the fortunate thing is the banks are the ones that have these brokerage houses, right? They're the ones that have these intermediaries. For them, it's a sunk cost already.
Right.
So that's the benefit. They do it just to be a player in the system, right? And to participate it on an institutional level because they know they make a decent return, especially on the government debt. It would be enough because if it wasn't enough, they would take it serious. They would have a minimum investment requirement. And right now, my understanding is that they don't.
Okay.
So as long as there's no minimum investment requirement, you have to participate. I have friends that do this exact same process in same case.
Right.
And they're so happy when they get to go to their annual general meeting and they get the dividends. The problem is they end up withdrawing the dividends, which is, going against the purpose of accumulating wealth anyway.
Guilty. I do that.
Well, you need to keep it invested. That's how we accumulate wealth. You make profits on the process, and that's what we want. Because the problem that we have in the region, we don't have capital appreciation.
Right.
We don't have growth invested. The share prices today might not move next year. You look a year from now.
Next year? You mean next 5 years?
I'm like, for example, I'm teaching investments tomorrow night, and I bring up, when we're talking about the exchanges, I look at dollars, and I said, if this share is worth $1 this year, next year it's going to be worth $1, and the year after it's going to be worth $1. But
is that because we don't... Sorry, no, go ahead. My apologies. Go ahead.
No. The reason why that happens is because there's no one buying the share. There's
right.
No demand.
Demand
is what drives the price.
Okay. But do you think, too, that in terms of buying the shares, the absence of a secondary market is an issue? And I'm going to use a very interesting example, if you'd permit me. Antigua Commercial Bank. Okay. Antigua Commercial Bank, I think the shares are still 50-cent shares. But right now, you can't get any shares from ACB to purchase. And so today, if you want to buy shares and shares are available for sale, you're buying what is a 50-cent share for between $9 and $12. There is actually a little, it's not a large market, a little secondary trade market there facilitated through the legal office for the bank. But because, I mean, that has been my new tool for my young people. I just started that now. Instead of giving you a Christmas gift or something, I'm going to give you shares. They have no clue what it's about. I tell them, listen, I'm going to give you the story. My mother bought me blah, 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 and now I have blah, blah, blah. And they look at me like, yeah. I'm like, you'll thank me later. You see, even something as simple as that. Because to my mind, while the value of the shares is still, I think it's 50 cents or $1, the value of it has gone up. Is that something you think that we could cultivate from the ECSC, or it has to be that the demand becomes so great that the share value begins to go up?
Well, we do have let me just clarify something. The ECSC does represent a secondary market. What you described right now is more of a private placement because Antigua, to my knowledge, doesn't have any company listed.
No, we don't.
ECSC.
No, we don't.
And that in itself becomes a problem when you're talking about that secondary market. So now, if you have a fixed number of shares that have been issued by this institution and somebody's trying to sell, they're going to have a gigantic markup, way more than the shares are worth. So you're going to overpay.
And that is what
really
is happening.
Don't want that. And you really don't want that, because if it's being issued at 50 cents, it's because it's been valued at 50 cents, and this is the value of the institution. The market, what somebody is willing to buy for, truly buy for in a competitive market, is the true value of the share when you're factoring dividends and all those kind of different things. So I wouldn't, if it's issued at 50 cents without any true fundamental financial reason to pay $9 a share, I would not recommend you do that at all. But unfortunately,
you make it back in the dividends, trust me.
Okay, well, if the dividends are that high, but you're talking about 50 cents to that. How much is that in terms of, that's what, 2,000% return?
Well, your dividends, the last dividend issue was 20%. So, and it's been
20%.
Per annum. So you've been running the last couple of years, you've been getting at least a 20% dividend on your shares.
Well, a 20% dividend is great.
Yeah.
But still not at $9. It's going to take you 20 years to recover from that
unfortunately, yeah. But you see, here's the thing, which is why I give them as gifts for me, because you're a little kid. By the time you get to 20, you're ready for this.
Over time,
this is not an investment for an adult to me, but for the children, something long term. Right.
Yeah.
So
I do the same thing with my daughter as well. She has her own investment portfolio. So I still give her gifts. I feel guilty because she comes with her list. But I really look for the day when some Antiguan companies be listed on the stock exchange, and more companies in general, because you're gonna get that secondary market that you're talking about. I would love to get some of that 20%. I can't come in and buy shares in an institution as a non-Antiguan. Maybe I should go through my associates there, but and see if I can get some. But that's a really good investment. But not if I could get the shares at 50 cents, I'll definitely do that.
No, you're not getting them at 50. I'm guaranteeing you will not be getting 50 cents. And somebody just laughed at you on Facebook. You mentioned, I think the last point I want to touch on, and I want to thank you so much for staying with me and sharing on this program today. Ladies and gentlemen, in case you've just joined us, we are speaking to Mr. Terrence Martin. Terrence, how do I describe you? You're a financial planner, financial analyst, financial advisor?
Well, my first job is as a professor.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm a professor. My research is in financial advice. And on the side, I moved to an area that was very similar to the Caribbean, where there's not a lot of investment participation, and I decided to open a wealth management company.
And how was it going?
It's difficult because I'm having the same issues where there's a lack of education, and I don't have the time to educate at the level I would want to, and people tend to shut down when you're talking about certain things because they don't understand and they feel a little bit inadequate. But we've been growing year over year, and we're hoping for a good 2019. But it's taught me a lot, and it's encouraged me to come to the region and want to give back. I want to spread my knowledge. I want to help. I'm possibly going to be in Antigua in March, and I've already in talks to maybe holding maybe a little seminar for half a day, maybe for a couple hours, just to tell people what opportunities they're there, to expand on this same conversation that we're having now. And we had one in the summer, which was really successful, and we need more. And I'm looking at other islands in the region to do the same as well. But it's going well. But my full-time job is as a professor. Okay. But I'm on the side. I have a business partner that runs the day-to-day of the business.
Okay. So here's my last one that I want you to tackle for me.
Okay.
Our young people, our young people in school. I did some checking, and the credit unions are in some of our schools. The credit unions go into the schools and they encourage savings. Petra Williams wants to find a vehicle an instrument, a program that we can go into the schools and now begin to teach the other side, the investment, the wealth creation. How do we begin to get our young people interested in a portfolio, developing this portfolio, playing with it? I mean, I say playing because I'm thinking, we'll start them with theoretical things and then we look at how do we then expand. Because to my mind, you spoke earlier about the issue of the education being a key retardant, or the lack of education being a key retardant to the development of portfolios. And I'm thinking that our best bet is to go directly to our youth who are still in school, just like the credit unions are building that savings habit. We literally inculcate an investment habit. What's your feedback?
If I could just go back a little bit before I answer, I got my involvement in this from my grandmother, actually. She had a Sunday school, and she would encourage the kids to save, so they would bring you $5, or the parents would give them $10 every Sunday. She would save it with a credit union, and she would get her interest in December, and she would calculate the interest associated with each percentage of the overall allocation. She was doing weighted averages, and she would give them that interest. So if you had $200, the interest rate was like 5%, then you get, your portion of that 5%. That was my introduction to investment. And I think what we can do in the schools, and I think you're definitely right, we have to start in elementary. And I've been fortunate to be involved in curriculum development in the state of Texas. In fact, I was the only academic on the curriculum committee for a mandatory personal finance class in the high schools. And I also was a director for a Council of Economic Education, and we worked with some projects that involved elementary school kids in Amarillo, Texas. And we had in the math curriculum, starting with examples of money, and how money grows, and from there encouraging that participation. In the high school level, I ran an investment competition in South Texas that saw over 200 to 300 kids participating, and it was run by SIFMA. And I'm going to see if maybe SIFMA could, if people outside of the U.S. could participate in SIFMA. And the name of the project is escaping me right now. But it was an investment competition where the students they were given an allotment of money, and they had to make investment decisions.
Okay.
And at the end of a 4-month period, they won. I think it's open, and we may be able to participate in something like that.
All right.
But the name is escaping me right now. But of the actual project. But that would be really good in getting a hands-on. When it comes to investing, it needs to be hands-on. Because if I tell you the theory, I'm going to run you away. When I teach investments to my students, I scale back the theory, and we try to make it hands-on, right, and show the application. We talk about the news. What does this mean for the market? What type of movements do we expect? How would you trade if you see these movements? I have friends there in Antigua, and one of them sent me an article about Apple losing so much in share price in one day. What would you do was the question. I would buy more Apple stock. If we have these conversations. Now, if we want the kids to get this, unfortunately, I don't know who's going to teach them, because the teachers in most cases don't know. So we'd have to start with training the teachers, and that's something I've done here in Texas as well. When I was in Texas, I'm in Utah now. I keep thinking, I'm wishing I was in Texas. So train the teachers. You have to train the trainers. If we train the trainers, then they could go and look at that. And we also need to work with curriculum and to tailor our curriculum to the needs of our modern society. And in our modern society now, we need to start investing. We're living longer. The government retirement age isn't moving, and government can't hire everybody.
Right.
Hotels coming and going. They're not giving us the best managers. The meaning, I don't want to say meaning, I don't want to trivialize anybody's work, but we don't have the jobs that really pay the significant bucks. And prices are high, disposable income is low, So we need to understand and ways to move money from the current period into the future. And the only way we could do that is through investing.
Okay.
It's not through saving, it's through investing. Because every year, I don't know if you ever had the experience where you said, next year I'm going to buy this. This time. You can see anything. And then next year come and you go buy it and it's more expensive than it was last year.
Yes.
And then you're going to say, I can't afford
it this
year.
year.
And push it back to next year.
Yes.
And every year we push it back and we can't get it. And another thing is, I don't know how it is with healthcare there. As we get older, healthcare costs increase, and that's not going to change. So we have housing, we have food, we have healthcare issues, we have long-term care for people that just live forever. I don't know if you know some people that just don't die, they just live forever. And, you want an opportunity to not struggle. You don't want to struggle. And if you think about, we have aging populations in the region. We don't have enough kids. We don't have kids being born. And we have a lot of people leaving. And certainly
clearly you were talking to our...
outside.
Clearly you've been talking to our Director of Social Security, but go ahead.
Well, it's everywhere in the Western Hemisphere. If you're not in China, India, we have negative birth rates globally. Right? People just not having kids. Even though you might see one or two pregnant young girls and have the susu on the side about them, in general, as a country, we have negative birth rates, or very low birth rates. So that's going to put a drag on the economy. So it's actually better for the government to encourage retirement savings so that consumption, which is a significant part of GDP calculation, doesn't fall off as our population ages.
Agreed. Well, on that note, I think we've had many mouthfuls today, lots of it. I want to thank you, Mr. Martin, for taking the time to share with us on this very important discussion. I have committed from We're the Ones that every second Wednesday we will be looking at some issue relating to the whole matter of financial planning. And so when you're coming in to Antigua, of course, the doors of We're the Ones are open for you. I really think it's an issue that like you said, we need to begin to have more conversations about, at least to start, and then to find a way to move from conversations to actual doing and, and getting our people busy. So I want to thank you very much for staying with us. And I look forward to continued engagements with a number of people. I'm still working on getting some representatives from the Eastern Caribbean Stock Exchange. I've emailed them, I've WhatsApped them. I'm waiting for some feedback.
Good luck.
Because I want to have a conversation with them here. I think it's important as part of this process. Maybe I need to go down to Flight to St. Kitts and talk to them. So I look forward to more discussions, and all the best. Have a most prosperous and productive 2019, and we will talk again. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. It was quite an interesting discussion. I hope you got as much out of it as... I don't know how to hang up the phone. I'm sorry. I hope you got as much out of it as I did, and that we can continue. I've made the commitment that every second Wednesday on We're the Ones, we will be discussing issues of financial management and financial planning for us as a... Can't do that here. For us as a people and a community. We have a few minutes left. I don't take call-ins. Oh, sorry. Right. So just a few minutes left. And I just want to say, I got a very interesting message from Mr. Leon Francis this afternoon. And I would like to just share it with my listening audience. It's about Paul Paddy Winter. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Paul Paddy Winter. He is an Antiguan by birth. He has won the Mr. Universe in bodybuilding several times in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. And he passed recently. I think he died. I'll actually read it from Mr. Leon Francis. Sadly, I'd like to announce the passing of Paul Paddy Winter. He died at his home this morning. He won the Mr. Universe several times in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. He was I think he's from Point, actually. Yes, he's from Point. He was in the Point in Antigua, and he is related to the late Massa Winter. Everybody know Massa Winter, right? And Francis Matthias. He was born on October 28th, 1935. He has been honored, by the government of Antigua and Barbuda, and he was the best in his business. I'm going to get a proper bio on Mr. Winter for next week's program, and we'll share that. He was known to have worked with, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yes, he actually worked with him and helped him to excel in sports. And he has acted in a number of movies in Italy. So, an Antiguan icon residing overseas, Mr. Paul Paddy Winter, he passed this morning. Of course, we always need to recognize the best of us. So, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you for tuning in. I hope today's program with Doyle Carter of the Basketball Association, the PRO, and Mr. Terrence Martin, where we were discussing financial management. He's a professor and a financial consultant. That both interviews today were of interest to you as listeners. And it's a part, like I said, of the process of sharing for us, about us, by us, here on We're the Ones. We look forward to seeing you next week. We'll be having another business-related discussion, not financial planning, but another one. I'll release that shortly. But I'm putting you on notice. I said so last week, the last Wednesday in this month, we will be taking up our village series. And our next village will be Bethesda. We're putting the panel together as we speak. We should be having a very engaging conversation about the history and the origins of the Bethesda community. So, ladies and gentlemen, on that note, I'd like to thank you for listening. And, we normally go out with our song, We're the Ones. I'm not seeing it under... Let me see. I'm not finding it. So, we will go out with our whatever is on tune this afternoon. So, on that note, We're the Ones, over and out. Have a good evening. I'm not hearing anything. There we go. And we normally go out with our song. We're the Ones. I'm not. So we will go out with our whatever is on tune this afternoon. So on that note, We're the Ones, over and out. Have a good evening. I'm not hearing anything. There we go. And we normally go out with
Said myself, Super Mario. Line up, tell them we coming. Everybody on the road and we ready to go. We taking over the place. Like an army on the road, taking on anything. We setting the pace. The mission is to bring back love and unity. It's better this way. Weapon in me artillery. Hey. Cause now is our time and we ready to fight. We not backing down, man, we taking for flight. Heading to the top and we never go stop. Say we not giving up. That's why I want you start to jump up in the revolution. It's a soca revolution. Carnival in every nation. We
starting a revolution. Rise up to the occasion. Everybody start to bust.